The first time Naruto Uzumaki changed the history of the shinobi world. He thought he had simply thrown a bad punch. He was 14, standing on a narrow forest road with rain dripping from his hair, when a bandit rushed him with a short spear. The caravan behind Naruto had already been pushed against the trees. Two horses were panicking. One wagon wheel had snapped. Kakashi was fighting three attackers farther up the road, moving so quickly that steel flashed between the trunks. Sasuke had already dropped one man with a kick to the knee and a strike to the throat. Hinata was guarding the merchants near the rear wagon. Naruto had one problem. The man charging him was bigger, stronger, and already inside the range where a kunai would help. So Naruto did what every shinobi had been taught to do since childhood. He forced chakra into his arm. Chakra made muscles stronger. It sharpened reactions. It let trained shinobi move farther, hit harder, and keep fighting after ordinary soldiers would collapse. Every academy student knew that much. The first lesson in chakra control was simple. Keep it inside the body. Guide it where it was needed. Waste nothing. Naruto had always been terrible at the last part. His chakra surged too fast. Instead of settling into his shoulder and forearm, part of it flooded through his palm. Naruto felt a strange pressure against his skin. Then, the pressure left him. The bandit had not reached him yet. Naruto's fist stopped nearly half a meter short of the man's chest. The man was still thrown backward. He flew across the road, struck the side of a wagon, and collapsed hard enough to crack two wooden boards. Naruto stared at his own hand. The bandit stared at him from the ground. Even Sasuke stopped for half a second. Naruto had no idea what had happened. The next bandit solved that problem by trying to stab him in the ribs. Naruto barely twisted away. The spearhead cut his jacket. He caught the shaft with both hands, kicked the man in the stomach, and shouted for Hinata. She stepped in at once. Her Byakugan was active, the pale veins around her eyes showing as she read the attacker's balance. One palm struck his wrist. Another hit the inside of his elbow. The spear dropped. Naruto finished the fight with a headbutt that hurt him almost as much as it hurt the bandit. By the time Kakashi disarmed the last attacker, Naruto had almost convinced himself that the strange blow had been an accident. Kakashi walked over to the broken wagon and looked at the man Naruto had launched into it. He measured the distance with his eye, then glanced at Naruto. Naruto expected praise. Kakashi asked very calmly how close Naruto's fist had come to the man's body. Naruto lifted his hand and showed him the gap. Kakashi's expression changed only slightly. He did not laugh. He did not say Naruto had imagined it. He simply asked what Naruto had felt. Naruto searched for the right words. Pressure, heat without warmth, something leaving his palm, then emptiness in the arm afterward. Kakashi looked at Hinata. She had seen the end of it through the Byakugan. But even she was uncertain. She said, Naruto's chakra had moved strangely. It had crowded around his hand, then vanished from her sight for an instant. That answer bothered Kakashi more than Naruto's explanation. They still had a mission to finish. The captured bandits had to be tied. The wagon wheel had to be repaired. The merchants had paid for an escort, not a discussion about Naruto's terrible chakra control. So the team kept moving. Nothing about the next 2 hours looked historic. Naruto complained about carrying part of the broken axle. Sasuke told him he was the one who had damaged the wagon, which was unfair because the bandit's body had done most of the damage. Hinata tried not to laugh, and failed. Kakashi made Naruto carry the axle anyway. That night, while the caravan camped beneath a rock shelf, Naruto waited until everyone else had settled down. Then, he walked behind a line of trees and held out his palm. He pushed chakra into his hand. He tried again. Still nothing. On the third attempt, the chakra rushed into his fingers and made them go numb. On the fourth, it flowed perfectly through his arm, exactly as his instructors had taught him. Naruto frowned. That was the problem. The academy had spent years teaching him not to waste chakra. His mother corrected him whenever she saw his shoulders tense during control drills. His father could reinforce a single muscle at exactly the moment he needed it. Sasuke was so precise that he could run across a narrow branch without making it shake. Naruto had always been the one leaking power everywhere. For the first time in his life, he wondered whether the leak itself was useful. He moved his chakra toward his palm and, instead of stopping it at the skin, deliberately pushed farther. Pain snapped through his fingers. Naruto yelped and fell backward into a bush. Kakashi's voice came from the darkness. He suggested that if Naruto planned to invent a new method of hurting himself, he should at least wait until after the client was safely home. Naruto climbed out with leaves in his hair and insisted he had everything under control. Kakashi looked at his smoking glove. Naruto admitted that perhaps everything was a strong word. 3 days later, they returned to Konoha. The village looked familiar, but the world Naruto lived in was not the world that would one day exist because of him. Shinobi were already everywhere. They served villages, escorted merchants, hunted criminals, guarded borders, gathered intelligence, and fought wars. Children entered the academy to learn concealment, tracking, weapons, first aid, tactics, and chakra discipline. Genin became Chunin through missions and exams. Jonin led squads. The Hokage commanded Konoha. But no one threw fire from their mouths. No one created clones from smoke. No one summoned animals from distant lands. No one healed a wound by glowing over it with green light. Chakra belonged inside the body. Some clans had strange biological advantages. The Hyuga could awaken the Byakugan and see through flesh, distance, and the body's chakra network. The Uchiha sometimes awakened eyes that could read movement with frightening clarity. The Aburame raised insects inside their own bodies. The Inuzuka bred dogs for war. The Uzumaki were known for powerful life force and unusually large chakra reserves. Those gifts were rare, but they were still understood as properties of bodies and bloodlines. Kakashi's current Genin team had been assembled around that older kind of warfare. Sasuke brought precision and close combat discipline. Hinata brought observation through the Byakugan. Naruto brought stamina, large chakra reserves, and an infuriating willingness to keep moving after sensible people stopped. No one had chosen them because of techniques that did not exist yet. Uncontrolled chakra flares had happened before. A terrified recruit might crack a cup without touching it. A wounded veteran might throw a burst of pressure during a final strike. Old instructors treated those incidents as waste, panic, or damage to the chakra pathways, because the effect could not be repeated on command. No one had ever learned to hold released chakra together, shape it, and teach the method to someone else. No one had ever built an actual technique from chakra outside the body. That distinction would become important later. Naruto was not the first human being to lose chakra beyond his skin. He was becoming the first person to make the mistake stable, repeatable, and useful. Naruto did not know that yet. He only knew that something interesting had happened, and interesting things were much harder for him to ignore than sensible advice. The morning after returning, he went to an old training yard before sunrise. He spent an hour punching the air. Nothing. He spent another hour trying to recreate the panic he had felt on the road. That only made him angry. Then, he tried something different. He stopped imagining a punch. He imagined his chakra as water in a cup filled too high. Instead of holding it back, he let it spill over his palm. A faint pressure brushed the grass in front of him. Naruto froze. He tried again. This time, the grass bent. He laughed so loudly that 2 crows fled the trees. The third attempt went wrong. The chakra burst sideways, slapped him across his own cheek, and sent him rolling through the dirt. By breakfast, he had a purple mark under one eye. Kushina looked at him across the table. Naruto claimed a tree had attacked him. Kushina asked whether the tree had won. Minato hid a smile behind his tea. Naruto decided that neither parent deserved the truth. For the next week, he trained whenever he could. His progress was terrible and real. At first, he could only create tiny disturbances close to his skin. Sometimes, they pushed dust. Sometimes, they made his fingers ache. Once he blew a cup off a stump and celebrated so loudly that he missed the cup hitting him in the ankle. The important part was that the effect could be repeated. Not every time, not safely, but repeated. That was when Hinata found him. She had come to the training grounds before a morning exercise and heard Naruto swearing at a wooden post. By the time she reached the clearing, he was standing with one hand stretched toward the target, staring as if he could intimidate it into cooperation. Hinata asked what he was doing. Naruto said he was proving that the laws of chakra control were stupid. Hinata blinked. That was not an answer she had expected before breakfast. Naruto hesitated, then showed her. The first attempt failed. The second produced a weak pulse that barely stirred his sleeve. On the third, Hinata activated the Byakugan. For her, the world changed. She could see Naruto's chakra system more clearly than any physician could see muscle or bone. Chakra moved through a network of pathways throughout his body, gathered in his arm, and rushed toward his palm. Normally, the flow should have stopped at the surface or returned inward. Naruto forced it through. Hinata saw the chakra pass beyond the last visible points in his palm. Then, it broke apart. She stepped closer. Naruto asked whether she had seen it. Hinata nodded slowly. The chakra had not vanished. Her eyes simply had no familiar pattern for what came next. That sentence changed Naruto's entire approach. Until then, he had been trying to throw chakra away from himself. Hinata made him realize that the real problem was not getting it outside. He had already done that. The real problem was keeping it together afterward. They began training together. Hinata watched. Naruto experimented. When too much chakra rushed through one part of his palm, she stopped him. When the flow scattered unevenly, she told him where. When Naruto insisted he could feel the shape perfectly, and then blasted himself backward into a mud puddle, Hinata spent several seconds pretending she was coughing before Naruto realized she was laughing. His progress improved quickly once he had someone who could actually see his mistakes. Naruto started with a simple goal: keep a patch of chakra just outside the skin for 1 second. The first successful attempt lasted less than half that. Then 2. At 3 seconds, the chakra collapsed and pushed his sleeve halfway up his arm. Naruto treated this as proof that he was improving. Hinata treated it as proof that he should stop wearing loose sleeves while training. A few days later, they tried to give the external chakra direction. Naruto formed the thin layer above his palm, compressed it, and pushed forward. A hanging wooden bell moved. Barely the width of 2 fingers. But Naruto had not touched it. Neither of them spoke for several seconds. Then, Naruto did it again. The bell moved again. A third time. Again. That was the moment the accident became a technique. Naruto still had no name for it. He barely had a theory, but he could repeat it under calm conditions, which meant someone else might be able to repeat it too. They should have told Minato that day. Instead, Naruto decided he wanted one more improvement first. This was a mistake. He had noticed that a straight push lost strength almost immediately after leaving his hand. So he wondered whether motion inside the chakra itself would make the shape more stable. The next morning, he tried to spin it. The first attempt twisted his wrist. The second threw dirt in Hinata's face. The third produced a tiny rotating distortion above his palm. Naruto became so excited that he forced twice as much chakra into it. The shape collapsed. A shockwave hit the training post, split the top half, and punched a shallow crater into the ground behind it. It also knocked Naruto and Hinata flat. 3 patrol shinobi arrived within minutes. By noon, Naruto was sitting in the Hokage's office. Minato Namikaze was not smiling anymore. Naruto had spent his entire life being compared to his father. Minato was not famous because of impossible chakra techniques. None existed. He was famous because he was one of the fastest men alive, a brilliant tactician, an exceptional knife fighter, and the shinobi responsible for ending several border conflicts, with operations that other commanders had considered impossible. He had become Hokage because people trusted his judgment. That made his silence much worse. Naruto explained everything, from the bandit on the road to the crater in the training yard. Hinata confirmed what she had seen. Minato asked Naruto to demonstrate. Naruto formed the pressure above his palm and pushed. A stack of papers slid across the desk. Minato stared at them. Then he asked Naruto to explain the feeling as precisely as possible. Naruto did. Minato stood, removed his cloak, and held out his own hand. His control was much better than Naruto's. After only a few failed attempts, a faint ripple appeared above his palm. Naruto's mouth fell open. Minato pushed. One sheet of paper lifted off the desk and fluttered to the floor. Naruto felt personally betrayed by genetics. He had spent weeks bruising himself, and his father had reproduced the basic effect before lunch. Minato noticed his expression and almost laughed, but Naruto immediately challenged him to do the spinning version. That was different. Minato tried once. Nothing. Twice. The chakra slipped apart. On the fourth attempt, he created a weak rotation that collapsed almost instantly. Naruto's bad mood vanished. For the first time in his life, there was something his father was learning from him. Minato did not let the moment become sentimental. He understood too quickly what the discovery meant. If he could reproduce even the simplest version after one explanation, other trained shinobi could do the same. Naruto had not found a private trick. He had found a new category of skill. That afternoon, Minato called only 3 people into a secure meeting room. Kakashi came because he had witnessed the original incident. Tsunade came because any new use of chakra could damage the body in ways no one understood. Hiyashi Hyuga came because Hinata's Byakugan had made the experiments possible, and because Minato would not continue using his daughter in dangerous research without telling him. Naruto expected Hiyashi to immediately forbid Hinata from participating. Instead, Hiyashi asked to see the technique. Naruto demonstrated. Hinata explained what happened inside his chakra network. Hiyashi watched his daughter more carefully than he watched Naruto. The Hyuga had spent generations perfecting the opposite philosophy. Their discipline valued absolute retention, minimal waste, and control so precise that a careless leak of chakra was considered embarrassing. Naruto's discovery began with the exact mistake they trained children to eliminate. Hiyashi clearly disliked that fact. He disliked the evidence less. He allowed Hinata to continue under supervision. Tsunade was even less impressed by the excitement. She grabbed Naruto's hand, checked the swelling in his fingers, and informed him that if he kept forcing chakra through pathways that were not prepared for it, he could permanently damage his nerves. Naruto asked whether that meant the technique was dangerous. Tsunade said Naruto was dangerous, and the technique had simply given him a new method. The research group began the next morning. They kept it small. Naruto, Hinata, Kakashi, Minato, Tsunade, and 2 trusted instructors trained in an isolated yard. Their first goal was not combat. It was safety. They discovered that external chakra behaved differently from chakra inside the body. It dispersed rapidly. It became unstable when pushed too far. Dense bursts could rebound into the user's pathways. Smooth release was safer, but weaker. Naruto was not the best at every part. Minato could reproduce a straight pulse more efficiently. Kakashi understood how to time a release with a physical strike. One instructor managed to extend a thin layer around a short blade for less than a second, making the edge bite deeper into a wooden block. Hinata developed the most precise release of all. She could push a thread of chakra from 2 fingers and stop it before it scattered. Naruto should have been annoyed. Instead, he was fascinated. Everyone else looked at the discovery and tried to make it cleaner. Naruto kept looking at it and wondering what else it could become. He returned to rotation. At first, he could only make the chakra wobble above his palm. Then, he learned to create 2 opposing currents. The pressure became stronger. A wooden board cracked without being touched. Minato could copy the motion eventually, but Naruto remained better at creating chaotic rotation because his enormous chakra reserve let him waste energy while searching for the right pattern. His old weakness had become a laboratory. Weeks passed. For the first time, the Hokage's son stopped being introduced as a boy trying to catch up with Minato Namikaze. Inside one hidden training yard, Minato Namikaze was taking notes on something his son had invented. The secret lasted 26 days. That was longer than Naruto expected, and much shorter than Minato wanted. The problem was Sasuke. Sasuke did not discover the training yard by accident. He noticed that Naruto had stopped complaining about early missions, started disappearing after debriefings, and somehow improved his striking range without changing his stance. During a sparring match, Naruto blocked a kick with his forearm, then released a tiny burst of chakra at the same moment. Sasuke landed 2 steps farther back than he should have. He said nothing then. The next morning, he was waiting outside the restricted yard. Naruto immediately accused him of stalking. Sasuke pointed out that following an obvious idiot did not require much skill. Kakashi prevented the argument from becoming a fight. He also reported the breach immediately. Sasuke was kept outside the yard, while Minato decided what to do. The decision was not to reward him for snooping. Minato had already been discussing a controlled, second stage of testing. If the method only worked for Naruto, his family, and 2 hand-picked adults, the village still did not know whether it was truly teachable. Sasuke was a useful test case. He was disciplined, had excellent control, trained beside Naruto every day, and had no natural habit of leaking chakra. If Naruto could teach him, that would prove something important. Sasuke entered the program only after accepting the same medical limits and secrecy rules as the adults. Naruto still told everyone that Sasuke had joined because he could not resist following him. Sasuke denied this with unnecessary intensity. He hated being a beginner. Naruto loved watching him be one. Sasuke's control was excellent, but that made the first step strangely difficult. He had spent years learning to prevent leakage. His chakra stopped to his skin almost automatically. Naruto, who had been criticized for wasting power since childhood, became the one telling Sasuke to relax. It was possibly Naruto's favorite morning of the year. Sasuke finally produced a weak external pulse before sunset. He did not celebrate. He simply repeated it until his hand shook. Over the next 2 weeks, something unexpected happened. The same method did not produce the same result in everyone. Naruto's chakra remained powerful and difficult to contain. Rotation made it more stable. Hinata's became thin, precise, and easy to direct through tiny points in her palms. Sasuke's behaved differently under compression. When he pushed a dense layer outside his hand and held it too tightly, the air above his skin became warm. At first, everyone assumed it was friction. Then Sasuke held the pressure against a dry leaf. The edge browned. He tried again with more chakra. The leaf curled and smoked. Naruto accused him of cheating. Sasuke, whose sleeve had just started burning, calmly said he had planned the entire thing. He then spent several seconds trying to put himself out, without looking hurried. Even Kakashi laughed. Tsunade was less amused. She inspected the burn and immediately reduced Sasuke's training time. The result still changed the research again. External chakra was not only something that could be shaped. Under the right conditions, it could change its physical behavior. No one had words such as nature transformation yet. They simply called it alteration. Sasuke became obsessed with heat. Naruto became obsessed with rotation. Hinata began testing whether her thin chakra threads could touch an object without delivering enough force to break it. The first practical proof came on a mission that was supposed to be simple. A landslide had buried part of a mountain road north of the village. 3 workers were trapped inside a collapsed storage tunnel. Naruto's team was sent with rescue crews because Shinobi were strong enough to move heavy stone and fast enough to work before the tunnel shifted again. No enemy appeared. No one attacked them. The danger was the mountain itself. The entrance was blocked by a slab too large for the workers to move safely. Kakashi and Sasuke could have shattered it with reinforced strikes, but doing so might have brought the ceiling down on the people behind it. Naruto tried a different solution. He placed both hands against the stone, not to punch it, but to feel the cracks. Hinata used the Byakugan to study the narrow spaces around it. She identified one side where the slab was barely touching the support wall. Naruto formed a broad layer of chakra outside his palms and released several weak pulses instead of one strong blast. The first did nothing. The second shifted dust. The third moved the slab less than a finger's width. Kakashi immediately understood. He wedged a metal bar into the new gap. Sasuke and the rescue workers added pressure. Naruto used another pulse at the exact moment they pushed. The The slab rolled just far enough to create a safe opening. They pulled the trapped workers out alive. It was not an impressive battle technique. It did not destroy a building or defeat a famous enemy. It mattered more than that. Naruto had used external chakra to solve a real problem that ordinary reinforcement could not solve safely. One of the workers told the story after returning home. That should not have been enough to expose the research. Then, a merchant mentioned seeing Naruto strike without touching someone on the caravan road. A patrol shinobi talked about the crater at the training yard. A Hyuga servant noticed Hinata returning from restricted sessions with damaged gloves. Small pieces of information began to connect. Konoha was a village built on secrets, which meant everyone was very good at noticing when other people had one. The first rumor called Naruto's discovery the empty hand. The second claimed Minato had invented an invisible weapon and was teaching it to his son. Naruto hated the second rumor so much that he nearly started explaining the truth in public just to correct it. Minato stopped him. The Hokage could control official information. He could not erase curiosity. A larger group of trusted shinobi was invited to study the basic external release. The dangerous experiments remained restricted. The simplest exercise became standardized. Move chakra into the palm. Allow a controlled amount beyond the skin. Maintain it for 1 breath. Let it disperse safely. Most experienced shinobi could eventually do it. Few could do much with it. That was the second great surprise. Naruto had opened the door, but the room beyond it was enormous. Some shinobi needed days to create a visible effect. Others learned a pulse quickly, but could not shape it. A veteran swordsman discovered he could wrap a faint layer around his blade for the instant of impact. A sensor with excellent internal awareness learned to spread a thin field over the ground and feel when someone stepped through it. A medic under Tsunade learned to send a tiny external thread into injured tissue and stimulate a muscle without cutting the patient open. The medical experiment lasted less than a second and left the medic exhausted. Tsunade stared at the patient's moving finger for a long time afterward. For the first time in years, she looked excited by something she did not yet understand. Naruto watched all of this with a strange mixture of pride and irritation. Every week, someone did something with his discovery that he had never considered. Then, he would go back to the training yard and try something even stranger. His rotating chakra had grown from a wobbling patch into a compact sphere above his palm. It was still unstable. It made a loud, grinding sound when too much energy accumulated. If Naruto lost focus, the sphere collapsed violently. Kushina learned to recognize that sound from across the house. More than once, she shouted through the window that if Naruto broke another wall, he would rebuild it without chakra. Naruto always promised to be careful. Kushina never believed him. Hinata often stayed after the official sessions to help him measure the rotation. Their friendship changed without either of them noticing the exact moment. At first, she had been the quiet teammate who saw his mistakes. Then, she became the person Naruto looked for whenever he discovered something new. He would arrive with burned fingers, torn gloves, or a ridiculous theory. Hinata would listen, activate the Byakugan, and tell him which part was actually possible. Sometimes, she was wrong. Sometimes he was wrong. More often, they were both partly wrong and discovered something better while arguing with the evidence. One morning, Hinata missed a session because Hiyashi had called her to a clan meeting. Naruto spent the first hour turning toward every set of footsteps outside the yard. Before realizing he was waiting for her, he became irritated with himself. Then more irritated when Kakashi noticed. Hinata changed too. Her clan had always praised perfect internal control. She had spent years trying to fit that ideal. Now she was building an entirely new style around releasing chakra through individual points in her palms and fingers. One evening, she struck a practice post without touching it. The impact was tiny, barely enough to make the wood click. Naruto reacted as if she had split the Hokage monument. Hinata smiled for the rest of the night. Not everyone was pleased. Danzo Shimura attended the first council briefing on the new chakra discipline, with a face that revealed almost nothing. He controlled a covert branch, commonly called Root, created by an older council charter before Minato became Hokage. Root handled missions the village rarely acknowledged, and answered to Danzo through its own chain of command. Minato could restrict its access to new research and could issue emergency orders to its operatives, but permanently dissolving the branch required evidence of serious abuse and a council vote. Minato disliked that arrangement. He had inherited it along with the office. Danzo asked practical questions. How long did an average Chunin need to learn the basic release? What was the maximum tested range? Could it penetrate armor? Could several users combine their output? Had foreign spies observed it? Could children learn it faster than adults? Minato answered only what was necessary. Danzo listened. Its final question was the one that mattered. What would happen if another village learned it first and developed a weapon Konoha could not answer? Minato said that was exactly why the research had to be controlled. Danzo replied that control and delay were not the same thing. The disagreement did not become an argument in the council chamber. It did not need to. Danzo left with the expression of a man who had already decided that waiting was a luxury. The village managed to protect the detailed training notes. It could not protect the idea itself. Merchants from the original caravan repeated the story in border inns. A Konoha intelligence officer later learned that strangers had paid one of those merchants to describe exactly how far Naruto's fist had been from the bandit. By then, the rumor that Konoha shinobi were learning to strike beyond their own reach had already crossed the land of fire. Several weeks later, the first foreign evidence arrived. A Konoha patrol returned from the northern border with a wounded shinobi during a brief clash with scouts believed to be from the land of lightning. One enemy had released chakra through his forearm and produced a sharp static shock on contact. The effect was weak, but it had numbed the Konoha shinobi's hand long enough for the attacker to escape. There was no proof the foreign technique had been copied from Naruto's research. The enemy might have recreated the idea independently after hearing the rumors. That difference no longer mattered. The principle had escaped. Once people knew chakra could exist outside the body, every village had thousands of trained minds capable of asking the same new questions. Minato expanded the official program. Danzo expanded his unofficial one. Naruto learned about it because of a boy he never met while the boy was conscious. He arrived at Tsunade's clinic one afternoon with Hinata to ask about muscle damage caused by rotation. They found the medical ward unusually quiet. Two masked guards stood outside a treatment room. Tsunade came out with blood on her gloves. Naruto asked, "What happened?" She told him to go home. Naruto did not move. Hinata's Byakugan activated before anyone could stop her. Through the wall, she saw a young man lying on a bed. His chakra pathways in both arms were inflamed and irregular. Several small branches near his palms had gone dark. Hinata went pale. Tsunade closed the door behind her. The injured shinobi belonged to one of Danzo's covert units. He and several others had been ordered to practice external release under combat pressure. The training method forced them to keep pushing more chakra, even after pain began. One man's pathways had ruptured. Another had collapsed from exhaustion. The boy in the room might never regain full control of his hands. Naruto stood very still. Until that moment, the injuries caused by his discovery had mostly been his own. Burns, bruises, numb fingers, a broken training post, things he could laugh about later. This was different. Someone he had never met had been crippled because another man wanted faster results from the principle Naruto had discovered. Naruto went directly to his father. Minato already knew. That made Naruto angrier. He demanded that the entire program be stopped. Minato refused. Naruto could not believe it. Minato explained that stopping Konoha's official work would not stop Danzo, foreign villages, private clans, or ambitious shinobi. The knowledge already existed. Pretending otherwise would only leave the most reckless people in control of its future. Naruto hated the answer because it sounded true. For several days, he did not train. He still went on missions. He still argued with Sasuke. He still ate too much after returning home. But he avoided the research yard and ignored the half-finished rotating sphere that had once occupied every free thought. Hinata eventually found him sitting on the roof of an old storage building at sunset. She did not tell him that what happened was not his fault. That would have been too easy, and not entirely true. His discovery had changed the world. Real consequences belonged to that change. Instead, she reminded him of the workers under the mountain. She reminded him of the medic who had moved a damaged muscle without cutting into it. She reminded him of her own technique, which existed because Naruto had shown her that perfect control did not always mean keeping everything inside. Then she told him that if responsible people stopped learning because irresponsible people were dangerous, only the irresponsible people would keep learning. Naruto looked at her for a long time. It was the most serious thing Hinata had ever said to him. The next morning, he returned to the yard. He did not train harder, he trained more carefully. That difference mattered. Minato introduced mandatory limits for official experiments. Tsunade recorded injuries and recovery times. Hinata helped develop a visual warning system based on the swelling of chakra pathways. Naruto hated the paperwork and completed it badly, but he stopped treating every failed attempt as a joke. Minato also opened a formal inquiry into Root's training program. He froze the division's access to official chakra research, ordered village suppliers not to fill new experimental requests without written approval, and placed 2 independent inspectors over the branch. Under the old charter, he could not dissolve Root on suspicion alone. Danzo still had old safe houses, loyal cells, and stores accumulated over years. The restriction slowed him. It did not remove him. At the same time, the world kept moving faster. The Uchiha established their own supervised research group after Sasuke demonstrated controlled heat. The Hyuga began debating whether external chakra release violated or completed their traditional doctrine. Weapons instructors experimented with chakra-coated edges. Medics tested tiny external impulses. Scouts explored whether released chakra could carry sensation beyond the skin. No one had a complete system. Everyone had fragments. For the first time, Shinobi were not simply refining techniques inherited from older warriors. They were inventing things that had never existed. Naruto began to notice one question hidden beneath all the others. Where did chakra end? Every lesson described chakra as energy generated by the body. Yet old mission reports contained places where trained shinobi felt unusually heavy, unusually calm, or strangely refreshed, without explanation. Mountain passes where exhaustion vanished too quickly. Desert basins where chakra control became difficult. Forest clearings where even experienced trackers felt watched, though no one was present. Most reports treated those places as superstition. Naruto started collecting them. Tsunade told him that humans were not the only living things connected to chakra. Plants and animals produced faint amounts. Large ecosystems sometimes affected a shinobi's perception. That explanation should have satisfied him. It did not. Hinata noticed something else. During a mission through an old forest south of Konoha, she activated the Byakugan near a deep stone basin and saw faint currents in the ground. They were nothing like a human chakra network. They were too broad, too slow, and far too large. That was enough to ruin his sleep for the next month. Naruto's obsession with the strange places eventually reached the Research Council. Minato was reluctant to approve another experiment. The village had only recently stopped losing shinobi to reckless external release training. Foreign villages were developing their own methods. Danzo had been formally ordered to suspend unsupervised trials after Tsunade documented the injuries from his unit. The last thing Minato wanted was his son trying to push chakra into a forest because an old report described a headache there 30 years earlier. Naruto arrived with maps. That surprised everyone enough to make them listen. Minato had given Naruto and Hinata limited access to old mission archives under Kakashi's supervision. They compared Konoha patrol reports with merchant journals, diplomatic summaries, copied border observations, and accounts purchased or traded by intelligence officers over decades. The collection was incomplete and often contradictory, but the strange locations were not random. 9 regions appeared again and again across reports connected to different countries. A desert hollow in the west, a chain of caves near the coast, a volcanic valley, a marshland, a high mountain basin, several forest and river regions. The descriptions varied, but experienced shinobi repeatedly reported abnormal pressure, unusually dense wildlife, or chakra behaving strangely near those places. No one had ever considered them parts of the same phenomenon. There had been no reason to. External chakra changed the question. Naruto proposed a simple test at the nearest site, the stone basin Hinata had already examined. He would release a very weak external pulse, not at a person or an object, but into the ground. Hinata would observe whether the faint currents below reacted. Tsunade approved, only after adding so many conditions that Naruto complained the experiment might be safer if he stayed in bed. A second medical researcher attended the meeting. Orochimaru had worked with Tsunade for years in anatomy, poisons, nervous system damage, and the limits of human recovery. He had no legendary forbidden techniques because none existed yet. What he had instead was an uncomfortable habit of asking questions other people preferred not to ask. He listened to Naruto's plan with unusual interest. Most researchers wanted to know whether external chakra could move, heat, cut, sense, or heal. Orochimaru wanted to know whether a released pattern could force living tissue to behave in ways the body itself no longer commanded. Tsunade told him that Naruto was trying to study the ground, not corpses. Orochimaru accepted the correction with a thin smile and wrote something in his notebook. Naruto barely noticed. 2 days later, the team returned to the stone basin. Minato came personally. Kakashi secured the area. Tsunade prepared for injuries. Hinata stood closest to Naruto because her eyes were the entire reason the test was possible. The basin looked ordinary in daylight. Gray stone surrounded a shallow depression filled with moss and rainwater. Old trees leaned over it from 3 sides. Birds moved in the branches. Hinata activated the Byakugan. The currents beneath them were still there. Very faint, very deep. Naruto knelt and placed one palm against the stone. His first pulse vanished without any visible effect. Hinata said the current below had not changed. The second was slower. On the third attempt, Naruto changed the pattern. Instead of a single push, he released a sequence of weak pulses at the same interval as his own heartbeat. Hinata suddenly raised a hand. Something had answered. Naruto stopped immediately. The current below the basin had moved upward. Everyone waited. Nothing else happened. Minato told him that was enough for the first test. Tsunade agreed immediately. Naruto should have listened. Instead, excitement got the better of him. He wanted to know whether the response had been random, and his hands moved before the argument in his head was finished. Minato saw the chakra build and ordered him to stop. Naruto had already released the second rhythm. This time, he let a tiny part of the returning pressure enter the rotating layer above his palm. The effect was immediate. The basin trembled. Naruto tried to pull away. His hand would not move. For one terrible second, he felt as if his chakra had become a thread tied to something beneath the world. Then the thread pulled back. Not with force, with scale. Naruto's own chakra reserve had always felt enormous compared to most people his age. What answered him made his entire reserve feel like a drop of rain. Hinata gasped. Through the Byakugan, she saw the faint current beneath the basin brighten and race outward through the ground. It did not stop at the edge of the forest. It divided, disappeared beyond the range of her sight, and continued somewhere far deeper. Minato grabbed Naruto by the shoulder and dragged him away from the stone. The connection snapped. Silence returned. Naruto lay on his back, breathing hard. Tsunade checked his pulse, pupils, hands, and chakra flow. He was exhausted, but uninjured. Kakashi searched the basin. Nothing had changed, except a thin crack in the stone. After an hour of observation, even Minato had to admit they had no idea what the experiment had done. Naruto, recovering enough to become annoying again, said he might have invented the first technique in history whose special ability was doing absolutely nothing. The first warning came before dawn the next morning, but it was local. A Konoha patrol hawk arrived from the northern forests of the Land of Fire. The message described an enormous red creature forming near a region that Naruto had marked on his map. The witnesses counted 9 massive tails. That report frightened the room. It did not yet prove a worldwide event. The foreign messages took longer. On the third day, A diplomatic relay carried an emergency report from the western desert. Something enormous had risen from beneath the sand. Witnesses disagreed about its shape, but every account described a single massive tail. 2 days later, news reached Konoha from the coast. A creature with 3 great tails had surfaced near an island and overturned 2 fishing boats before disappearing into deeper water. Reports from the mountains and marshes followed through different routes. Some arrived by relay hawk. Others came with couriers who had already spent days on the road. By the end of the 7th day, 9 separate regions on Naruto's map had produced 9 impossible creatures. The events themselves appeared to have begun within the same narrow span of time. The knowledge of them had simply needed a week to cross the world. The room where the reports were collected became completely silent. Naruto stared at the pins on the map. 9 old pressure zones. 9 newly formed beings. 1 pulse through the hidden current connecting them. He did not need anyone to explain the connection. He had done it. Not intentionally, not alone. The energy had already existed. The reservoirs had probably existed longer than any village. But his resonance had given the deep currents a pattern they had never held before. Minato immediately classified the exact cause. The research group and a small part of the council knew what Naruto had done. The public did not. Foreign governments only knew that Konoha had been developing external chakra methods, and that a strange disturbance had occurred around the same time as the creatures appeared. That was more than enough to create suspicion. Over the next week, researchers formed a rough theory from scattered observations. The 9 regions contained enormous natural reservoirs of chakra. For centuries, perhaps much longer, that energy had circulated without a stable external form. Naruto's experiment had introduced a repeating shape into the network. The reservoirs had responded to it and organized around their own internal currents. The result was not 9 copies of the same creature. Each reservoir stabilized differently. The number of major outward chakra streams formed tails behind the body. One reservoir produced 1, another produced 3. The largest known reservoir, deep within the forests of the Land of Fire, produced 9. No one knew why the creatures took animal-like forms. Tsunade suspected that living ecosystems surrounding each reservoir influenced the shape. Hinata believed the currents themselves behaved like a nervous system once they became stable enough. Naruto mostly cared about one question: were they alive? The answer came quickly: yes. The creature near the coast avoided ships after the first collision. The one in the mountains watched a patrol from a distance, then deliberately changed direction to avoid them. The desert creature attacked armed shinobi after they surrounded it, but ignored a nearby village once the soldiers retreated. These were not storms made of chakra. They made choices. The world reacted badly. Over the next 2 weeks, as reports crossed borders and governments compared sightings, every major village reached the same conclusion. If another nation learned to control one of these beings, the balance of power could collapse overnight. Orders went out, patrols doubled, borders tightened. Scouts searched for the creatures. Researchers tried to estimate their strength. 2 caravan companies stopped using a northern route after one sighting. Coastal villages pulled fishing boats closer to shore, which raised the price of preserved fish in several inland markets. Daimyo demanded guarantees that the shinobi villages could not honestly give. Rumors spread faster than facts. Some claimed Konoha had created the creatures deliberately. Others claimed the beasts were a punishment for the new chakra discipline. Minato refused to name Naruto and accepted political responsibility for the experiment as Hokage, while his diplomats tried to prevent suspicion from becoming an excuse for war. Minato issued one order repeatedly: do not provoke the 9-tailed creature inside the Land of Fire. It had appeared far from Konoha, in a dense northern forest. Early patrols reported that it moved mostly at night, avoided settlements, and became aggressive only when approached by armed groups. That was good enough for Minato. He ordered observation from a distance. Danzo considered that decision criminally naive. He no longer argued openly in council. After the injured root shinobi reached Tsunade's clinic, Minato had restricted his authority over chakra research and opened the formal inquiry. Danzo obeyed the written order where inspectors could see him. Root's old network made complete oversight impossible. Danzo broke the remaining work into small cells, used safe houses that predated Minato's administration, and moved supplies through intermediaries rather than official village stores. He knew the inquiry might eventually strip him of that freedom. He intended to achieve something decisive before the council could finish. The existence of the nine-tailed creature changed his priorities. A human external pulse could crack wood. A skilled user could coat a blade or produce heat. Those developments mattered. The creature in the forest carried more chakra than hundreds of shinobi combined. Danzo did not need to invent a perfect method of control. He only needed to be first. His covert group had already been experimenting with combined release. Several shinobi could project chakra along the same physical line more safely than they could project freely through open air. Metal stakes gave the line a fixed path. Woven wire between them distributed pressure. During tests on human volunteers, the researchers had noticed a second effect. After several synchronized pulses, a target's external chakra sometimes continued echoing the imposed beat for a few heartbeats after contact ended. The echo always faded quickly in humans. Danzo's researchers assumed the effect would remain temporary in a larger target as well. They had no evidence for that assumption. The technique was crude. It was also the beginning of something no one yet had a name for. Danzo ordered 12 heavy iron stakes forged in separate civilian workshops through intermediaries, along with ordinary lengths of woven wire. He assigned several dozen trained operatives. The plan was simple in theory. Surround the creature while it rested. Drive the stakes into the ground. Connect them with wire. Feed external chakra along the ring until the projected pressure closed inward like a net. The operatives would not overpower the creature's total chakra. Danzo believed they did not need to. They only needed to interrupt its movement long enough for researchers to study how its energy behaved under pressure. The plan failed before the first minute ended. The nine-tailed creature sensed the ring closing. It worked. The first chakra line touched its outer flow and produced an effect Danzo's researchers had never seen. Instead of resisting the pressure like a human target, the creature absorbed part of the rhythm. Its own immense chakra began repeating the imposed beat, even between pulses from the cage. Then the rhythm traveled through its entire body. 9 enormous tails snapped upward. The forest shook. Danzo's operatives increased output, exactly as they had been trained. The cage forced the creature's 9 major chakra streams into the same artificial pulse. The streams collided inside its body. The creature screamed. The sound flattened grass for hundreds of meters. One stake ripped out of the earth. Then another. A third bent nearly in half. Danzo ordered the operatives to hold. Several did. 2 collapsed when the returning pressure burned through their arms. One line snapped and lashed across the clearing like an invisible whip, cutting through 3 trees. The creature surged forward. Danzo finally ordered retreat. By then, the creature understood only one thing clearly. The small humans had surrounded it. They had caused pain. Now, they were running. It followed them. The first warning reached Konoha through a patrol hawk less than an hour later. Minato read the message once. Then again. The report mentioned a covert Konoha unit, iron stakes, an unauthorized containment attempt, casualties, and the nine-tailed creature moving south at frightening speed. Kushina saw his face and stopped asking whether he would be home for dinner. Within minutes, Konoha shifted into emergency response. This was not a planned battle, and not a heroic duel. It was a disaster, moving toward populated land. Minato sent fast teams to evacuate farming settlements along the likely path. Kakashi took command of a forward unit. Tsunade prepared the hospital. The Uchiha and Hyuga organized civilian movement inside the village. Naruto heard about the attack while training with Hinata and Sasuke. The moment he learned Danzo's group had used a combined external chakra cage, he understood part of the danger. If the creature had been born from resonance, forcing a new rhythm into it could destabilize the very pattern keeping its body together. Naruto tried to leave immediately. A Jonin blocked him. He was 14. He was also the person who understood the original resonance better than anyone alive. Those two facts collided for several ugly minutes. Minato arrived before Naruto could do something stupid enough to settle the argument himself. He did not want his son anywhere near the creature. Naruto did not argue that he was stronger than it. That would have been ridiculous. He said the opposite. No one was strong enough to beat it by force. If Danzo's cage had damaged the creature's internal pattern, Naruto might be the only person who knew how to undo that damage. Hinata added that she could see changes in chakra structure better than any scout they had. Sasuke had one practical reason to go as well. His heat release was crude, but it was the strongest tested method the research group had for creating a bright distraction at distance, without needing to strike the creature directly. Minato assigned him to use it only on terrain and only when ordered. Sasuke then added that someone still needed to stop Naruto from doing something stupid. Naruto objected to the wording. Minato objected to almost everything. He still took all three of them. Not as the front line. As specialists, under direct command, they reached the first damaged settlement near dusk. The creature had not attacked the village itself. It had torn through a field while chasing Danzo's retreating operatives. One storehouse had collapsed from the shock of its passage. Several people were injured. No civilians had died. That detail mattered to Naruto. The beast was furious, but it was not killing everything around it. It was following a target. They caught up with the retreating covert unit several kilometers south. The sight stopped Naruto cold. The creature was larger than any living thing he had ever seen. Dark red chakra rolled across its body like fur made from heat and smoke. 9 tails cut through the trees behind it, each one carrying enough force to break trunks simply by changing direction. Its eyes were bright, focused, and terrified in a way Naruto had not expected. Several of Danzo's remaining operatives were trying to slow it with reinforced arrows and wires. They were accomplishing nothing except making it angrier. Minato ordered them to scatter away from the civilian route. Some obeyed immediately. Root had trained them for years to obey their cell commanders even when ordinary command channels changed. And Danzo's last standing order had told them to keep the creature on the planned route until the research team escaped. Minato's emergency authority overrode that order legally. Habit and fear did not disappear as quickly as law. The hesitation nearly killed them. One tail slammed down. Minato crossed the distance with pure, reinforced speed, grabbed 2 operatives by their vests, and pulled them clear before the ground exploded behind them. There was no teleportation, no impossible flash through space. He was simply so fast, so efficient, and so perfectly timed that the movement looked unreal. Kakashi's unit attacked only to redirect the beast. They used thrown blades, smoke, noise, and short external bursts against trees to create movement on its flank. Sasuke joined when ordered. He compressed chakra in front of his mouth and hands, producing a burst of heat strong enough to ignite dry brush 20 meters to the creature's left. It was not a great ball of fire. It was a rough, dangerous sheet of flame that almost burned Sasuke's eyebrows off. The beast turned toward the sudden light. That gave the evacuating operatives time to run east instead of south. Hinata watched through the Byakugan. What she saw frightened her more than the creature's size. The 9 main currents inside it were not flowing separately anymore. They were jerking toward the same rhythm, then tearing apart, then being pulled together again. Danzo's cage was gone, but the creature's own chakra was still repeating the imposed pattern it had absorbed, like a muscle cramp spread through an entire body. The human tests had shown echoes lasting only a few heartbeats. In a being made almost entirely from chakra, the echo had become self-sustaining. Naruto understood immediately. He tried the obvious solution first. It almost killed him. He formed his rotating sphere, larger and denser than ever before, and rushed toward one of the distorted currents along the creature's foreleg. His idea was to use rotation to break the artificial rhythm, the way a spinning current could tear apart a weak external shape. He reached the leg. The sphere touched the beast's chakra. For half a second, Naruto felt the distortion split. Then, the surrounding pressure hit him. The difference in scale was absurd. His technique was a stone thrown into a river. The river threw the stone back. Naruto flew across the clearing, struck a tree, and lost his breath. Hinata reached him before he could stand. Tsunade would later tell him he had cracked one rib and badly bruised another. At the time, Naruto only knew that the direct approach was useless. The beast roared again. Its body flickered. For one instant, part of its shoulder lost shape and became a cloud of raw chakra before pulling itself together again. Naruto finally understood the real danger. The creature was not simply enraged. It was coming apart. If the pattern collapsed completely, no one knew what would happen to that much released chakra near populated land. Naruto forced himself to breathe slowly. The damaged ribs made every breath sharp, but pain was useful. It stopped him from rushing forward again. Hinata kept her Byakugan fixed on the creature. She described what she saw in short, precise sentences. 9 great streams moved from the center of its body into the tails. Each should have carried a different rhythm. Instead, the remains of Danzo's cage kept dragging them toward one beat. Every time the streams collided, part of the body lost shape. Naruto looked at the ground. The answer was not in the beast alone. The first time he had awakened the reservoirs, he had not forced energy into them. He had sent a pattern into the natural current and allowed the current to answer. Danzo had done the opposite. He had trapped the beast inside a rhythm it did not choose. Naruto did not need to overpower the creature. He needed to give it room to find its own rhythm again. The problem was getting close enough to do it. Minato listened while Naruto explained the idea. He did not like it. There was no safer alternative. Kakashi would lead the remaining Jonin to draw the creature toward a wide clearing away from the village road. Sasuke would use heat only to create visible distractions, never to damage the beast. Hinata would remain near Naruto and track the 9 currents. Minato would keep the creature's head and front limbs occupied whenever it turned toward them. Naruto would use the earth itself. Before anyone committed to the plan, Hinata swept the clearing and the surrounding roots with the Byakugan. Far below the surface, she found a faint, slow current, similar to the one beneath the stone basin. It was weaker here, but it was real. Kakashi adjusted the route by several hundred meters, so the fight would pass directly over that branch of the natural network. Naruto would send a weak resonance through it, but this time, he would not impose a fixed rhythm. He would change the pulse every time Hinata told him one of the creature's major streams was trying to separate from Danzo's pattern. It was less like striking an enemy, and more like helping someone remember how to breathe. Kakashi moved first. 3 Jonin sprinted through the trees and threw metal blades into trunks on the beast's right. At the same moment, Kakashi released short bursts of chakra through his own knife, not enough to cut the creature, but enough to snap branches and create movement across its vision. The 9-tailed beast turned. Sasuke ignited a second patch of dry brush farther left. The creature snapped its head toward the flame. Minato crossed in front of it, close enough to become the obvious threat, then changed direction at the last possible instant when a claw came down. The ground burst beneath him. He escaped by less than a meter. Naruto had seen his father fight many times. He had never seen him work this hard simply to survive. That removed the last temptation to act brave for no reason. Naruto knelt and pressed both palms to the earth. He released one weak pulse. Nothing answered. A tail swept through the clearing. Kakashi rolled beneath it. One Jonin was caught by the edge of the impact and thrown into a bush. Another pulled him away before the next strike. Naruto tried again. Still nothing. He realized he was making the same mistake he had made during the original experiment. He was waiting for the ground to respond to his chakra. The first time, the response had only come after he matched a living rhythm. Naruto changed the pulse to his heartbeat. The earth answered. It was faint, but unmistakable. Hinata saw the current rise beneath his hands. Naruto immediately slowed the next pulse. The natural current followed. The beast's enormous tail twitched. Hinata shouted that the first major stream had changed. Naruto matched it. For a moment, one tail stopped jerking with the others. Then the creature sensed him. its head turned directly toward Naruto. Minato threw a knife at the ground beside its eye, followed with a chakra-reinforced leap, and struck the side of its muzzle with both feet. The blow could not injure it. It was enough to make the beast turn. A paw swept toward Minato. Sasuke released the largest heat burst he had ever attempted. Fire flashed across a fallen tree between them. The sudden light drew the creature's attention for 1 second. Minato escaped. Sasuke dropped to one knee, coughing. His technique had burned his throat and palms. Naruto did not stop. Hinata tracked the second tail, then the third. Each one carried a slightly different natural rhythm buried beneath the forced beat. Naruto changed his pulses again and again. Too fast once, and the fourth stream tightened violently. He corrected. Too weak on the fifth, and the creature began to lose shape along its side. He increased the next pulse carefully. The process was slow. The battle around him was not. Trees shattered. Smoke covered half the clearing. Kakashi lost his knife and switched to a short sword. Minato's left arm was bleeding. 2 Jonin had been carried away with broken bones. Sasuke had enough chakra for only small flashes now. No one was winning. They were buying seconds. Hinata suddenly staggered. The Byakugan had been active too long. Blood ran from one nostril. Her vision blurred for an instant. Naruto told her to stop. She refused. The 7th and 8th streams were already separating. Only the 9th remained trapped in Danzo's rhythm. It was the largest. It ran through the creature's chest and into the longest tail. Hinata focused until the world around her became little more than light and moving chakra. She saw the pattern. The 9th stream did not need a stronger pulse. It needed silence. Naruto understood. He had been answering every movement with another rhythm, but the final stream kept reacting to him because it had never been allowed to move without outside pressure. Naruto lifted his hands from the ground. The resonance stopped. For one terrifying second, nothing happened. Then the first separated stream continued on its own. The second followed. The third. One by one, the 9 currents settled into different cycles. The forced beat disappeared. The beast froze. Its raised paw stopped above Minato. The red chakra rolling across its body became smoother. The broken edge of its shoulder pulled together. The tails lowered slowly behind it. Every shinobi in the clearing stopped moving. Naruto stood with difficulty. The creature looked at him. There was intelligence in its eyes now, without the panic that had filled them before. Naruto did not approach. He did not raise a weapon. He simply stayed where he was. After several long seconds, the 9-tailed creature turned away. It walked toward the northern forest. No one tried to stop it. The trees swallowed its enormous shape, one piece at a time, until only the movement of distant branches showed where it had gone. Naruto finally sat down in the dirt. Sasuke dropped beside him, burned, exhausted, and still trying to look composed. Hinata sat on Naruto's other side, because her legs had started shaking. Kakashi looked at the ruined clearing and observed that this had been considerably more expensive than the caravan mission. Naruto laughed once, regretted it immediately because of his ribs, and decided not to laugh again for several days. Kushina reached the field hospital before midnight. She did not joke when she saw the bandages around Naruto's chest. She hugged him carefully, checked that he could breathe without help, and then asked whether this counted as another attack by a tree. Naruto said the forest had clearly organized. Even Minato, exhausted and bleeding through a fresh wrap on his arm, laughed at that. The young root operative Naruto had seen months earlier eventually recovered enough movement to feed himself and write slowly with his right hand. Tsunade could not promise he would ever fight again. Naruto visited once after the battle and did not try to apologize for inventing ninjutsu. He simply told the young man that the rules had changed because of what happened to him. The consequences began before the injuries healed. Danzo's operation could not be hidden. Too many surviving operatives had been treated by Tsunade, and several of them gave matching accounts once Minato separated them from their old commanders. One wounded field leader still carried Danzo sealed authorization to begin containment if the creature was found resting. Investigators also traced the iron and wire through 3 civilian purchase ledgers to intermediaries paid from a root reserve account. Most importantly, Minato had issued a direct order not to provoke the creature, and Danzo had deliberately built a plan around ignoring it. The emergency council hearing lasted 2 days. The wider investigation continued afterward. Naruto was not invited to most of it. He did not need to be. Danzo lost control of his covert forces. His unauthorized research division was dissolved. He was removed from operational authority and placed under guard while the council investigated the deaths and injuries caused by his program. He remained alive. He remained dangerous in the way intelligent men could remain dangerous even without an army. But his conflict with Naruto's discovery was finished for now. Konoha would not hand the new age to him. Minato made another decision that mattered more. Ninjutsu needed a name. The village had spent months calling it external chakra release, shaped chakra, Naruto's method, and several less polite things invented by injured trainees. The instructors eventually settled on a simple term for the growing discipline: ninjutsu, shinobi techniques created by controlled chakra beyond the body's ordinary limits. Naruto pretended he did not care who chose the name. He cared very much. The first academy curriculum was cautious. Students would not learn combat techniques. They would begin with safe external control under supervision. Hold a thread of chakra beyond the palm. Move a light object. Disperse the energy before it rebounded into the body. The village also drew a hard line between basic ninjutsu and dangerous research. Resonance with deep natural currents now required direct authorization from the Hokage and medical supervision. Combined containment experiments on living targets were suspended. Every official training group had to record injuries and maximum safe output instead of treating pain as proof of progress. For older shinobi, specialized schools began forming almost immediately. The Hyuga studied precision release. Several Uchiha researchers followed the compression method Sasuke had discovered and explored heat and other changes in chakra behavior, while others found completely different results. Weapons specialists developed stronger chakra edges. Tsunade's medics worked on controlled stimulation of living tissue. Scouts experimented with sensing fields. Most attempts failed. A few changed everything. Naruto returned to the academy several months after the battle, with his ribs healed and his hands scarred from training. A class of younger students stood in the yard, with their palms held out. An instructor walked between them, correcting posture. One boy concentrated so hard that his entire face turned red. A weak puff of chakra escaped downward instead of forward and knocked his own feet apart. He landed on his back. The whole class laughed. Naruto laughed with them. Then he remembered lying in mud while Hinata tried not to laugh at him and decided the kid was probably doing fine. The thought struck him harder than expected. Less than a year earlier, every teacher he had ever known had told him that leaking chakra meant poor control. Now, children were being taught to do it on purpose. The thing Naruto had been worst at had become the first lesson of a new shinobi discipline. He found Hinata waiting outside the academy gate. Her own technique had improved enough that she could project precise chakra strikes several centimeters beyond her palms. Hiashi had stopped calling the method wasteful. He had not apologized for ever calling it wasteful, but Naruto considered the change close enough to a miracle. Naruto and Hinata walked through the village together. They had spent months sharing dangerous experiments, missions, arguments, failed techniques, hospital visits, and one encounter with a creature carrying more chakra than hundreds of Konoha shinobi combined. Somewhere along the way, Naruto had stopped wondering whether Hinata would be there when he had a new idea. He simply expected to find her beside him. At a quiet crossing, he reached for her hand. For once, Naruto did not make a joke afterward. Hinata's face turned red, but she held on. That evening, Minato stood in his office, reading reports from other countries. The new age was already spreading beyond his control. A lightning shinobi had developed stronger electrical discharge. A desert patrol had witnessed a fighter hardening released chakra around his forearms. A coastal medical group claimed they had stopped internal bleeding with a controlled external pulse. There were also reports of the other tailed creatures. Some nations were observing them. Some were hunting them. One had disappeared completely. The world Naruto changed was not becoming safer. It was becoming larger. Deep beneath another part of Konoha, Orochimaru was studying a smaller change. Months earlier, while Tsunade's group explored medical applications, he had asked whether external chakra could command tissue after the body's own signals stopped. He had been told that the question had no practical value. He disagreed. That afternoon, one of the former root operatives, injured by forced external release months earlier, had died after a sudden collapse of damaged internal pathways. It was not the young man Naruto had visited, but another survivor from the same program. Tsunade authorized a post-mortem examination because the medical team needed to understand why some pathway injuries kept worsening long after training stopped. Orochimaru was one of the anatomists permitted to assist. The official examination ended after sunset. Orochimaru stayed behind with the body. The man had been dead for only a few hours. There was no heartbeat, no breath, no measurable awareness. Orochimaru had no secret resurrection technique, no ancient scroll, no forbidden ritual. He had a needle, anatomical knowledge, legitimate access to fresh tissue, and the principle Naruto had given the world. Chakra could leave one body and affect something outside it. So, Orochimaru formed the thinnest external thread he could manage and guided it into the dead man's forearm. The first attempt did nothing. The second caused a muscle to tighten and release. Orochimaru adjusted the angle. The third pulse traveled along a nerve. The dead man's index finger slowly bent toward the palm. The man was still dead. Orochimaru stared at the finger for a very long time. Above him, children were learning Naruto's first lesson. Across the world, villages were creating their first ninjutsu. In distant forests, deserts, mountains, and seas, 9 new beings were learning what it meant to be alive. And in one quiet room, someone had just proven that ninjutsu could command dead tissue even when life itself did not return. For Orochimaru, that was not an ending. It was the first useful question of whatever came next.